2012, designer Friedemann Friese of Spiele released a game called Fremde Feathern, or Strange Feathers, although the intent of the phrase is more like adorning yourself with someone else's plumage. The game name comes from an album by the band Element of Crime that was entirely cover songs. Songs originally released by someone else that Element of Crime then made their own. And the game design, which was released in English under the name Copycat, works similarly in that Friese took elements from many different games, both large and small, such as Agricola, Dominion, Through the Ages, and Ticket to Ride, and combined them all into a single design of his own that had a copying element to the gameplay where you're trying to copy actions that you're taking. The game also had a bit of German politics in it because there was a plagiarism scandal at the time where many politicians had obtained degrees inappropriately thanks to plagiarism. So that was an interesting little tie-in, everything together. Now I bring that up as background for discussion of the 2021 release Freie Fahrt, which will be released in English under the name Free Ride. Let's give a short taste of that and then we'll talk more. Free Ride's game board features a map of Europe with 45 European cities on it that are connected by train routes that players can build over the course of the game. You're going to start with your train in one of these cities, and on a turn you can use 2 track placement points to place track on the board, initially from where your train is, and in future turns from whatever your train is connected to. Most track spots take only 1 point to place, so I can use my 2 track placement points to go from Warsaw to Prague. On a future turn, I could go from Prague through Berlin to Bremen. I don't have to build in a straight line. I can branch if I wish. If you are building over a ferry or a tunnel spot, that takes 2 track placement points, so my entire turn would be going from Bremen to Copenhagen. Or on a future turn, I can build from Prague to Munich and then Munich to Milan, but this takes 2 points and I have only 1 left. So I turn this sideways to show that it is not finished. I can mark it with my hammer or keep the hammer in my hand to show that when I next build, I must complete this first. You can't leave half-finished track all over the board. Every time you build track, you are going to mark it with a tunnel of your player color to show that this track is owned by you. This is important because when you are traveling in the future with your train, you can travel over your own track for free. So, another action that's available to you on a turn is to move with your train 2 links. So I can go from Warsaw through Prague to Munich. I could go from Warsaw to Vienna. I could go to Berlin. I could stop in Prague if I wish. I can go to Prague and go back to Warsaw. All of that is possible. I can't travel to Milan since this track is not finished. On a future turn, maybe I finish building it and I have 1 more point to go somewhere else. Maybe I start over here. I would mark this as unfinished, going to Kiev. Someone else could finish this track as well if they wish. I am still the owner of it, but they can build there if they want to. Perhaps they want to move their train to Kiev for some reason, or they're in Kiev and want to go to Warsaw. Why am I starting in Warsaw? Where am I trying to go? That's the central challenge of the game. In the late 2000s, a friend of mine said that he and his family played Ticket to Ride so much, they felt they had grown a little tired of the assortment of tickets included in the game. There is a USA expansion pack that has a wider variety of tickets available, but they wanted even more than that. So they took all the city names on the game board, printed them out on sheets of paper, cut them up into identically shaped rectangles, and then would take a city and slide it into the top of a card sleeve and another city and slide it into the bottom, all at mystery without looking at what those cities were, and they would create their own set of tickets. They then had a spreadsheet that showed the shortest distance in train pieces from any city to any other city, and that would be the number of points that that ticket would give you or cost you at the end of the game. So they would have a deck of tickets, and whenever they grew tired of that particular deck, they would pull out all the sheets of paper, resort them, shuffle them around, put them in again, and there you go. More variety. You don't know what to expect, but over time you learn what the tickets are and what to anticipate and what to play for. So it's Ticket to Ride, but new. What's interesting is Free Ride does something very similar, but Friese has a much more streamlined system that provides you with interesting challenges as you're trying to decide where to start and how to proceed from there. Free Ride includes 3 decks of cards, with each deck having 45 cards that match the cities on the game board, so each city appears 3 times across all of the decks. And that's important to keep in mind because you are trying to visit as many different cities as possible. To set up, you reveal 3 trios of cards, and the starting player is going to choose from one of 6 possible pairings of these cards. So you look at the 3 trios available, and you can decide to start in one of the top cities and try to travel to the middle city, or you start in the middle city and you travel to the bottom city. Those are the 6 possible pairings that you can choose. Istanbul to Vienna, Vienna to Budapest, Gdansk to Sofia, Sofia to Berlin, Glasgow, St. Petersburg to Warsaw. You cannot go first to third. You cannot go in reverse order. Those are the only 6 possibilities. The gold symbols indicate cards that you remove from play in the solitaire game or a game with 2 players. Then you have only 2 copies of each card across all of the decks. So the first player is going to choose a pairing. Typically, you want to choose the shortest pairing possible, at least for the beginning of the game. Let's say we're going from St. Petersburg to Warsaw. If you choose this, you take the other card and remove it from play. Glasgow is just out. And you then take your train that you have available to you, which shows possible actions, placing track or moving your train. You're going to start in St. Petersburg and place your train in St. Petersburg, and then you are traveling to Warsaw. And as soon as you get to Warsaw with your train, you take these cards and put them face down, and now your train is empty and can pick up another route. So if these are still available, you're in Warsaw, that's rather close to Vienna. Okay, Sofia is a bit farther away. Gdansk is very close, so maybe if you travel to Gdansk, you can now pick this up. You start in Gdansk, you go to Sofia. As soon as you get your train to Sofia, you flip this down as well. This is a bit hard in the abstract unless you know where these cities are located, and that will bring the map back onto the table so we can see where we're going. Using the same cards I showed previously, let's assume I'm the first player, choosing to start in St. Petersburg and trying to go to Warsaw. After I make my choice, we reveal 2 more triples of cards, so the second player will have 8 possible pairings available. They will choose something, and then we reveal 2 more pairings, so the third player will have 5 available. So they have a wider variety of choices, and they have some idea of where players will be starting and building from, and they can take that into account when trying to make their choice. At the end, everyone has made their selection. You reveal cards, so there are always 6 triples available, which give 12 possible pairings for start and deliver that players can choose from in future turns. So on my turn, I might take my train placement points to put those on the board. On my next turn, I could place those on the board. I must mark them as mine as I build them. And then on my third turn, boom, boom, I pass through Riga, go to Warsaw, and deliver this. If no one has taken the Gdansk to Sofia route, well, maybe on my next turn, I build these 2 tracks. And on my next turn, I can go to Gdansk and back, pick up Gdansk to Sofia. Berlin goes away. We turn up a new triple and we continue. So everyone has 1 route that they're working on at most. You see the other options available to the future. If I know I'm going to end in Sofia, well, here's Athens to Naples. Athens is here. Naples is very close. Ideally, I can pick up this route, but of course that assumes that no one else is going to claim it beforehand. Additionally, other players will be building routes of their own. Let's say that the yellow player had actually picked up Istanbul to Vienna. Okay, sort of going back in time here, but don't worry about that. If they had picked up Istanbul to Vienna, they would be building track of their own, and possibly seeing that I went to Warsaw, maybe they started going here as well. And then maybe they were building out from Sofia because they're trying to get up to Vienna. Seems like a smart move on their part. It's relatively close. They're going to finish this, and of course, they're looking to see where else they're going to go from here. There's a Munich to Paris route that's available, so possibly they're building out this way. If I want to travel over this route to get to Sofia, I have to pay the other player to do that. So in future turns, if I have built down to from Lviv to Budapest to Beograd, and all of this is mine, I can travel on my own routes for free, but to travel over the route to Sofia, I have to give the yellow player one of my coins. Each player starts with 6 coins. A coin is worth 3 points at the end of the game, so I am giving them 3 points. I'm effectively dropping my score 6 points down relative to them to use their route. This is now nationalized, it's owned by the state, and anyone can travel over this for free. I don't have to go this way, of course. I could instead build from Lviv to Bucharest, and then build to Sofia myself, but that takes more track and more turns, but now this route is all mine and I don't have to pay anyone. But things get crowded, and often you will need to pay in order to get somewhere. The yellow player, if they wish, if I deliver it to Sofia and they see this route and they can't get it themselves, but they could choose to build this one track right here, and now they are forcing me to build around or to finish it myself and then pay them to use their route. So you can impede other people by doing that, and there are reasons you want to do that because, of course, if I give them a coin, they're going to get points. If you reach or pass through a city on the border that has these coins next to it, then you would pick up those coins. So there is great reason to go to Athens, and possibly the yellow player might have built there initially and taken their train to Athens just to pick up these coins, and then left for no other reason than picking up 6 points and having coins available so that they can pay to travel over other people's routes in the future. Well, now this route is here, one way or the other. Again, I can build around it or I can go through it. And what is faster for me as I'm trying to go to Naples? If I'm trying to go to Naples, well, I've got this route here. Maybe I just want to build this anyway so that I don't have to pay the other person. Again, I'd mark these all with my track. I got coins to pick up at Naples as well. There's all sorts of things that you'll be fighting for as you are building track on the board, with some track then being nationalized and now available to anyone for free. You are going through only this first deck of cards, and then once all of deck 1 has been played out and you start to use deck 2, well, now you are going to see cities again. That's the first time that you are going to have repeats of cities. Some number of routes will have been taken away. And we're going to start laying out these. And so now there's a possibility of getting a duplicate city. That's okay. It scores some points, but not as much as uniqueness. Okay. In addition, when you start drawing from the second deck, you get a second train car, and now you can have 2 routes at the same time that you are working on. So possibly I had Athens to Naples already, and I can look at what's available. Now flipping over the second card here. And maybe I'm like, fine, I'll go to Naples and I'm going to pick up Naples to London. Is there something else that I want to get instead? Budapest to Gdansk? Maybe I want to take a side route to Budapest. Who knows? There's lots of possibilities as these come up. And of course, people can take them away from you if they travel to somewhere first. I've played Free Ride 8 times on our review copy from 2F Spiele with player counts from 2 to 5. And the first time that everyone plays the game, and often the second time as well, they have a bit of difficulty finding cities on the map as they are searching for routes to choose, because the spelling of the city cards matches the pronunciation of the residents of that country. So Kiev is spelled differently than Kiev, and Praha instead of Prague, and München instead of Munich. So it takes a bit of translation to realize which city you're looking at, and if you're not familiar with European geography, where that city is located on the game board. After playing 8 times, I'm very familiar with where all the cities are located. I have no problem finding anything initially, but even after that level of familiarity, there's a bit of disconnect between looking at the triples of cards and looking at the game board and trying to find exactly where things are located and what's ideal for you to look for in the future in terms of where your next route might be. I understand why 2F Spiele took the approach that it did, highlighting an iconic location in each of the cities located on the map, locations that are detailed on the back page of the rulebook for anyone unfamiliar with them. But it does make gameplay a bit more difficult if you are not familiar with where Minsk is and you are trying to match this location, and then possibly someone has a train on the board that would be covering it and you don't initially know where something is. A number of people that I have played with wish that 2F Spiele had taken the approach at least of TransAmerica, a game that I'll mention for another reason in a moment, because cards in TransAmerica have the city highlighted on a silhouette of the United States. So pretty much everyone will know where Washington is, but if you don't know where Oklahoma City is in relation to anything else, or Medford, for example, well, now there's a dot on the map that shows you where that is, and it will help you find the city more easily. So it makes it a bit more difficult looking at this, saying, how close is Naples to London, or Paris to Minsk, or Munich to Paris, if I am not aware of where those cities are initially, and there's a lot of looking back and forth from one to the other. So people have wished that there might have been some icons. People that I have been playing with at BGG-Con took an approach where you would supplement the board. You might have something like this, where you were saying, here's the yellow route, and you can see the starting city and the middle city and the end city. Let's mark this one as well, even though we already know that Athens is very close to Naples. London is up here. We'll have the blue one. And you can look on the board and much more easily visualize for the potential routes that are coming in the future. Oh, wait, this is immediately close. I definitely want to do this. What about Seville and Barcelona? Okay. Yep. Bordeaux. Oh, look at that. Any of those are good, even though no one has built close to this region so far. So maybe we don't actually want to work on this right now, but in the future. And you can mark off everything just to show where things are. And then in the future, the yellow player goes to Munich and claims this route. They take Munich to Paris. You throw away Minsk. You remove these from the board. You reveal 3 new cards. And then mark them anew to show what's going where. It's an extremely helpful way to do it, although then you're getting very busy with the colors. And it might be more difficult to find where your train is. And then you're like, well, I'll stand the train on the end so it stands up a bit above everything else. And so everything gets even messier, although it's also clarified. So again, these cubes are not included in the game. I took them from Fresco. But it does give you an ability to show where things are in relation to you and where you might want to go next. Sure, I can go from Athens to Naples, but there's nothing else initially close here. Oh, maybe if I mark the final one. There we go. So I might be looking to Warsaw, and I can see where I want to build in the future, or maybe I want to make my way back to Istanbul to go to Lviv. Okay, there's possibilities available that you can see a bit more easily once you mark the board compared to what you have initially, although that is more streamlined and just looking at the routes itself. So there we go. Possibility for you if you were looking for another way to view things on the game board. Gameplay in Free Ride is streamlined and minimalistic, as you have only 3 actions available to you on a turn, and all of them are straightforward. 1, place track on the board, which I've already described, and which is very similar to Franz Benno de Long's TransAmerica. A game in which you get 2 track placement points on a turn, and in which most places require only 1 point in order to put a track, but you must spend both points to place over mountains or rivers. This is very similar to Free Ride, but the big difference is that in TransAmerica, you do not own the track. You are building a network, you have 5 city cards in your hand, and all you care about is that the network touches those 5 cities. As soon as that happens, you win the round, you shuffle up and you play another round and continue playing multiple rounds until someone wins. Free Ride works very differently in that you own the track that you place, and this becomes an important consideration as you are trying to complete routes and deliver whatever load you are carrying. It's a very abstract pick up and deliver game where you are delivering your train to a station and that's all you care about. You are making that route. It is a route building game in which your train is its own payload in a sense. So you are owning the tracks that you put down on the board, and you confront the situation continually where you could travel over someone else's route and pay them to do it, or build around and not give them any points, but spend time. And this consideration of time versus points comes up repeatedly in Free Ride. And this is the challenge that you have to confront as you are taking multiple turns, multiple teeny tiny turns over the course of the game, because those choices add up. Action 2, move a train 1 or 2 links, with the length of those links being irrelevant. As I mentioned, you want to choose as short a route as possible for your first route because ideally you want to finish quickly, drop off that load, and pick up something else. You have only 1 train car available, and if it's occupied, you can't pick up anything else, so you just want to dump it, get something else, dump, get something else. But that's what everyone wants to do. And the challenge is that often you don't have a short route that's available wherever you're delivering that current package. Maybe you have a load that you can pick up in the adjacent city, but it has to be delivered halfway across the board and those tracks haven't even been built yet. Or there's a very short route, but it will take you multiple turns to move there, and potentially someone else is going to snipe you and take that route before you get down there, which meant you moved in that direction and nothing happened. You wasted turns, you wasted time, and time is the critical element of this game. I've had both of these things happen to me repeatedly, where someone takes the route immediately before the turn before I was going to do so, possibly because I would look and say, okay, well, I can pick up this, but it would only be a movement of 1 link, which means I would waste one of my movement points. So I'm going to build first, so then I can move both links, and then someone took the route. So I built for no reason. So again, I wasted my time. Or I pick up something because it's close to me, but then after the fact, this one game in particular, I had to deliver to St. Petersburg, but it was completely built up by other people, so it was going to cost me multiple coins and a lot of time to get up there, and the benefit for doing so was completely not worth it. When you enter the second deck, you get the second train car, so now you have another load, you've got more to manage. Everything is passing through more quickly just because people have more that they can do. And when you enter the third deck, you're going to take your train and you flip it over, and the only difference is that instead of moving 2 links on a turn, you can now move 3. So much of the board has already been covered with track, and now you're just going to move faster on it, which means there's more potential for people taking routes that you thought you could get, but also ideally more for you to do quickly. That third deck goes pretty quickly just because, again, most people have built up track and now they're just zipping around making deliveries as quickly as they can. The third option that you can do, something I haven't discussed yet, is get more track. If you have 0 or 1 pieces of track, you can spend your turn to take 5 track from the supply. That's it. There's nothing to that, except that one option you have during the build track phase is if you have 0 or 1 pieces of track, you can spend the coin, get 5 pieces of track, and then place track. So again, you are confronted with this dilemma. of points or time. Do you want to spend a turn getting pieces of track, or do you want to give up 3 points to get track and build that same turn? How important is it for you to build immediately versus waiting? And there's considerations that come up repeatedly because sometimes it's all about seeing that you're about to transition from deck 1 to deck 2. And with that transition comes that second train car. And maybe you're near a load that you could pick up easily once you get that second car. So you say, okay, I'm going to build track and build track and build track and hope someone else makes a delivery. We go into Act 2 or Deck 2. I do think of it as Act 2. And then I get the train car and then I can pick up that second load and go. So you're building track in the hope that you will use it in the future. The problem comes is that when you build track, you're not picking up something, and someone else might pick it up before you. If you pick up something, someone else might build the track to the place that you need to go to, and you'll not have to pay them or build a longer route. Again, it's this, constant, conflict between time and points. Time and points. Do you want to give up the coin to use the route or go elsewhere? You're trying to debate how things are going to work out. So that's it for the actions. Place track, move your train, get more track. That's it. Those 3 simple things. And yet they combine together to create this compelling different experience each time I play. As I mentioned, I've played 8 times on a review copy, 2 to 5 players. The experience has varied a lot. I played 2-player games. In the first game, we roughly didn't compete at all the first half of the game. We built completely separate areas, and then eventually we started crossing over and getting things. It was very much an efficiency game because we didn't interfere with one another for half the game. Then we replayed, and the initial routes crossed, and we immediately started building the track that the other person would need to use in order to complete their route. We were immediately in each other's face, trying to constantly force them to pay us or build longer. Pay us or build longer. It was a very different experience. I've brought some of that over in playing with multiplayer games as well, where sometimes it really seems worth it to build that piece of track or start a piece of track in front of where someone needs to go, where you can take advantage of them taking a turn to pick up a route in order to blackmail them and say, you're going to have to pay if you want to use my track. And also, you have to finish that track yourself because I've got other things to do. I'm not going to build for several turns. So if you want to use it now, go ahead and hand over that coin or build something else. I don't care. It's this interesting competitive in-your-face model that is very different from TransAmerica, but fits more with the Ticket to Ride scale where gameplay, where sometimes you can really stick someone by claiming a route and forcing them to go elsewhere, or just stopping them from completing a ticket completely by cutting off their access to a city. So the game, I brought up TransAmerica, I brought up Ticket to Ride, and brought the idea of copycat in at the beginning, where this game very much feels like a mix of those 2 designs, the TransAmerica and Ticket to Ride, where you've got the trackling element and this dynamic ticket element. So you've got a pick up and deliver route building game that has very streamlined rules, and yet it's a bit more complicated than both of them because of the interaction of the players and because of the challenge of what comes up. You do sometimes have, as in Ticket to Ride, those gift routes that just fall in your lap, where you are right next to a city and then something else comes up, like Paris to Amsterdam, and you're like, that's nothing. I'm right here. I'm in Brussels. The route is already built. It's my track. I can pick this up and deliver it immediately. Done. You have those gifts sometime as well in Ticket to Ride, where you are drawing tickets and you get a ticket that you've already completed and it's free points. Sometimes that happens, but often it doesn't. And you are confounded by gifts given to other players, but of course it's based on what they have built up over time. sometimes anticipating what is still to come. One other aspect of the game is that because each city appears in each deck once, as you get near the end of a deck, if you have been paying attention, you could you could find yourself next to a city and you know that Budapest hasn't been drawn yet in this deck, and delay, build track, do something else, and hope that someone completes a route. Budapest will come up and you'll be able to snap up that route and be on your way to wherever it happens to be. Problem is, sometimes it might be somewhere far away, or Budapest ends up in that final slot as a destination, not a pickup spot, and so it's useless and you wasted your time. So there's these conflicting little elements throughout the course of the game that provide a fantastic challenge. I have not won any of the 8 games. Came in second in the 2-player games, of course. I came in second only once before, and that was by 2 points. And what was really fascinating in that game is sort of an example of how I play and possibly where I'm going wrong, is that I had 26 cards in, I think, a 5-player game. I had completed 13 routes, and the player who won had completed 8 routes. So a little bit about the points, just to make everything clear. The first time you have a city card, it's worth 5 points. Go to Rome, go to Naples, go to Milan, all those 5 points each. If you go back to Rome, back to Milan, back to Naples, the second and third time you get a card, it's only 2 points each. You want to visit as many different cities as possible. So 5 points for the first time you get a card, 2 points for the second or third, and 3 points for every coin you have. So I was completing a ton of routes, but I had given away so many coins to other people that I came in second. And that happens again and again where I give coins away because I'm using someone else's route. I find it more important to deliver quickly and get on to something else. I want to take that opportunity where the route is in the display. I don't want anyone else to take it from me, and keep going, because I've had many routes stolen from me in the past, so I get a little wary about other opportunities being stolen. But apparently I'm giving away too much. And apparently I'm spending too many coins to buy track and build at that same turn. And then I can't help myself the next time I play when I vow beforehand that I'm not going to do that. So in some ways I'm fighting myself as much as I'm fighting the other players, but I find it continually engaging to do so. I took the game to BGG-Con. I played 5 times at that show with different players and had a great time, even though I lost repeatedly. And it's fascinating playing a game that many times with that many different groups in that short a time, just to watch everything play out and watch things unfold and watch the dynamics of what's happening as people are building up and discovering how to do things. What's interesting too is just seeing some similarities from game to game, where the UK and Iberian Peninsula are often just untouched for the first half of the game. UK only has 3 spots to go to: Dublin, Glasgow, and London. Iberian Peninsula has 4, I believe, sort of 5, depending on how you count Bordeaux in there. But they're less populated. And so a route will flip up where it'll be, I don't know, Oslo, Glasgow, Athens, and people, you're just like, yeah, we're not touching that, because you have to zip all the way across the board to do this. And that route will sit there until you're into the 3rd deck. And then suddenly you have all the track. And maybe you just picked up something where it was like Amsterdam to Dublin. And so now it makes sense finally to pick up this long route. You can sometimes plan for those and finally stitch everything together, and you've got a second train car, so it doesn't hurt to put on that long haul route in order to make things happen. And hopefully you can deliver short routes on the way while working towards that longer route. It's interesting just to see the flow of the game over time, where initially everything is short, and then you're working up a little bit more, and you've got that bigger pieces of track and the bigger network where parts of it are becoming nationalized over time, and you're trying to visualize everything on the board for where you can travel. I've seen suggestions as well that ideally you could have track, instead of it all being black, it would be in the player colors, and I can more easily visualize this is the green route through everything. and then the black is all commonly owned. And all I have to try to imagine looking at is the green and black all the way through. Don't quite know if that would work, but that's how I try to visualize it and picture where it's best to travel on in order to work with these routes and cross-reference everything. And yet clearly I'm not doing well. So the process of all this is fascinating and I love doing it, but I am no good at doing it. There you go. An overview of the game. Free Ride, which is not a copycat, is something new but very similar in spirit to these earlier games. Oh man, I'm excited to play more, just because at least I want to get one win and see if I can actually figure out how to play this game. So maybe in time. Wish me luck.